Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, if you could all do me a solid and lightly tap the like button, perhaps share the video about and leave a comment. If you are not subscribed, subscribe as well. It would greatly help this channel. Thank you very much. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Subdates 220906.7. With myself and my entire limited crew having purged all of our cringe from yesterday's roast battle bollocks, I've mandated a resupply of the aforementioned cringe by blasting power metal throughout the Arcadia 25 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm sure many of you have heard about the Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings show done by Amazon. It's cost $1 billion, $250 million went to the Tolkien blah blah blah. And in turn we got some rather beautiful pictures and some rather interesting cast choices. Long before the show had even made it to air, there were many controversies. More notable, Disa's beard, Princess Disa that is, or the lack thereof. This controversy was enough that people said, are you taking more of the piss out of this than Peter Jackson did? Which it can be argued, the answer is yes, because dwarvish women have beards, alright? But then the show aired. It premiered on Amazon. To not much fanfare, in fact, ratings and reviews weren't great. The audience score is 35%, and of course the reviewers, the professionals, rated it a lot higher. Now I'm sure many will say, oh, this is just review bombing. Or, in a vast number of cases, it could be people noticing a number of continuity errors. As the show is inspired from the works of Tolkien, but they can't actually use the works of Tolkien, which renders the entire point redundant at that point, doesn't it? Yet you use the words, the Lord of the Rings of Power. One does have to wonder what you're actually trying to do. This may as well be a fan-made movie. Then again, fan-made movies generally do better, look better, and pay more respect to the source material. But getting the permission from Tolkien's Foundation, is that it? Is quite tricky and, as we now know, quite expensive. But for $1 billion, this show has to, well, it has to work. Granted, Amazon had a phenomenal number of people watch the very first episode, but they also had a phenomenal number of people say, it's shit! And I was one of them. On Friday last week, I sat and watched that first episode. I watched it with a friend and a couple others. Was it just one? We watched it and I was criticizing it throughout. First of all, proto-hobbits, that's adorable. Second, why did Galadriel constantly, whenever a man spoke to her, look like she was having a facial tic akin to an aneurysm, like she was offended that a man would talk to her? How is it she was part of a group of other elves who were supposedly the best of the best of the best, but only she could take down a snow troll? The others all panicked and looked like little bitch-made pricks. The fact that they all got sent to Valinor, but she's above that shit, and she decided, but my brother, the only bloke I apparently can respect. And that includes Gil-galad, who I can't respect either. So I'm going to jump off the boat just before we get to Valinor and go back. And this is not including my criticism that the armor looks like it was 3D printed on the lowest possible setting. For a show that cost this much, I am somewhat surprised that you made these errors. The lack of chemistry with the cast was palpable, and I found it quite interesting and wooden that the only decent chemistry there came from hobbits. Sorry, proto-hobbits. I mean half-orcs, sorry. They have so many different names. It's hard to tell which one's true, although based on how respectful this interpretation is after one episode, I have to assume everything is proto-something. Are these proto-elves as well, by the way? Needless to say, I was not best impressed. Now, many articles, many journalists have jumped on this and said it's hateful, because racism. And we're going to go through a few articles of this. We've got one here from The Guardian, so you know exactly where this is going. The backlash to rule them all. Every controversy about the Rings of Power so far. 1. The racist backlash. The most pressing and yet most depressing inevitable controversy has been the wave of keyboard warriors ranting about wokeness. Lenny Henry, for example, plays a proto-hobbit, which has caused a noisy minority of viewers to complain that Amazon has ruined their favourite thing. No, it's just highlighted the fact that by their own admission, Peter Jackson's work being set in the future, there was a racial genocide. Next, more racism. Although the casting has done a lot to slow it, the diverse casting that is, some viewers have still made a point of reminding us that J.R.R. Tolkien's books were very much of their time. In a private letter, Tolkien described his subhuman orcs as repulsive versions of the, to Europeans, least lovely Mongol types, while his books describe them as having swarthy complexions. There is also plenty of evidence that Tolkien opposed racism, but his critics point to orcs as a potential blind spot. If you look at orcs and the first thing you think is black person, you're the racist. You really are. The next complaint. Princess Disa's beard. She only has minimal facial hair, and it's very easy to distinguish her from the male dwarves. This is either a very good thing or a very bad thing depending on what sort of view you are, and oh god, fantasy fans are the absolute worst. No, fantasy fans just wish that you would pay respect to the work you are citing. Fantasy fans don't want to run a risk of a Starbucks mug or a bottle of water suddenly randomly appearing in the final season. Fantasy fans want to know they are being represented, and they are being represented with respectful interpretations of what you are trying to reproduce from the source material you don't have permission to use. I'm starting to understand why you ghosted Peter Jackson. Galadriel'S Armor. A promotional image for the series shows Galadriel, to all intents and purposes the show's lead, wearing armor. Some die-hard Tolkien fans pointed out that the armor bore the symbol of Fëanor. If I've mispronounced that, please correct me. You may remember that Galadriel and Fëanor were allies until the first kinslaying, which led to the House of Fëanor being banished as Galadriel swore an oath against him. Was this an oversight? Is this proof that the producers of the Rings of Power have taken their eyes off the ball? Has this symbol on one piece of armor ruined everyone's enjoyment of the series? More importantly, has all this fuss overtaken the actual show itself to the point that you can barely summon the energy to actually watch the thing anymore, or is it just me? I will answer all of your questions. Was this an oversight? Possibly. Depends on the timeline, I guess. Is it proof the producers have taken their eyes off the ball? Yes. Proof of that can come from the scale mail armor on top of scale mail armor breastplates, where it looks like both are t-shirts with it drawn on in Sharpie. Has the symbol of that ruined everyone's enjoyment? No, because not everyone, the casual viewer especially, will know about the issues concerning Galadriel and Fëanor, whatever. Not everyone knows this because not many read the books, and there are many books to read. It just ruins the enjoyment for those who have read the books and know that these discrepancies are like taking a giant shit on everything that they love. Instead of putting them down, which is what a lot of your points are in this, fobbing them off as keyboard warriors, why don't you show a little respect to people who genuinely love something and are seeing it being shat on? I felt this when Star Trek Discovery came out. There are a few episodes that actually are alright, but of the 50 plus episodes, which isn't many by Star Trek standards, it's not good. It's really not. Strange New Worlds though, now that has potential. The view of some regarding this show would include Andy Warski pointing out that articles already accusing fans of being racist because of their views on this is interesting. You have Elon Musk saying that Tolkien is turning in his grave because almost every male character so far is a coward, a jerk or both, only Galadriel is brave, smart and nice. But there's something Amazon have done. Amazon have taken the initiative. Yes, I've archived for you down below the Hollywood Reporter article about the whole racism thing if you're interested in reading it. Amazon have decided to tackle the review problem they have, because optics mean everything here, by putting a 3-day pause on reviews. This new policy applies to all of Amazon's shows and movies. An Amazon representative spoke to Variety and said they put the policy in place to give the service time to evaluate whether a user review comes from an actual viewer and not a bot or troll looking to hijack the review section. Now that's perfectly reasonable, to want to make sure your reviews are the most accurate they can be. I just, like many people, find this very interesting that you've only done it now, implemented it now, with a flagship show that's cost so much money to make. You have shows on your platform that are good, The Boys being amazing. I liked The Tick as well, but this one's fascinating because it's cost you so much and you like to dab on everyone by telling everyone how much it cost you, and it still looks like trash. You could have at least hired the people that made the costumes for Lord of the Rings originally. Even if some of the chainmail was made of plastic, it still looked better than anything we've seen so far on your show. I'm loving this thing that with some movies, some TV shows of late, it's been going on since the time of Captain Marvel, where all the professional reviewers give it the most glittering of reviews known to mankind. The audience goes and sees it and says, "Yellow Swag Fam, this is shit." And you then accuse them of being a buzzword of some kind, or many buzzwords. Basically everything to come out of Marvel Phase 4 has, minus I think Spider-Man No Way Home, taken an absolute pounding because of what it appears to be pushing, as opposed to the quality of the content it could be, because they have all that source material and they go with something that's not just a swerve but an absolute dump. In this case though, what do you actually have permission to use? Because I think we can, based on what we've seen so far, work it out quite well. You don't seem to have the rights to anything. It's tragic, okay? And I really wanted the Rings of Power to do well. I was looking forward to it. I, like many other fans said, I will give it a fair chance. I did that with Star Trek Discovery, and then I walked away. Blue Klingons, by the way. I gave this a chance. I've seen 2 episodes now. That's 2 more than I would have given any other show. Oh, my feels are suffering right now. Anyway, as I can't be asked for this anymore, I'm going to link a bunch of sources down below that I think you should all check out because they're all quite interesting. The Hollywood Reporter article is a good toilet read. The final thing I'd like to do is promote myself a little. I have some new merch. If you'd like to support the channel, I fixed the prices by the way, so they've gone down. Please consider doing so. I'll be on Twitch later. Ta-ta everyone.